Hello, and thanks for joining me today. Today we're going to do a little quick tip about a SOLIDWORKS PDM Vault name change. My name is Stephen Humphrey with GoEngineer, and I hope you enjoyed this video. So before you get started, there's a lot of things that need to happen before you can rename one of your PDM vaults, whether you have one vault or a few vaults. There's a very prescribed step-by-step process in order to do this, as well as some preparations you'll want to do prior to diving into these steps. So in a lot of cases, customers will have a vault name like a sandbox or test or development vault, and once they're up and running, they'll no longer want to call it that because it's no longer relevant, right? They'll want to name it to engineering or production or manufacturing vault or something along those lines. There's a lot of ways you can, or a few ways you can do this. You can just clone the vault and migrate the databases and the files and the information pertaining to that vault to a new vault. But if you're not up for that, or if that's something the customer doesn't want to explore, for whatever reason, you can follow this step-by-step guide to rename their file vault by making some changes and settings in the registry and in SQL. So before you get started, the first thing you want to make sure is that all checked out files have been checked into the vault before the name change is started, as well as any local file vault views on client machines. Those should all be removed
and reattached after the name change has occurred.
And same with existing file references with full paths for CAD files located in the file vault. While those should remain the same, just make sure that you know where the CAD files live in the vault before you make that change, because you're going to have to modify that root folder with the new vault name. You should definitely take a full SQL backup of all the databases, or the database in question in this case for the vault, as well as backup the files and the archive server configuration settings, just in case a full system restore is necessary, which that'll be unlikely. So in this example, we have a vault named test vault here, and it's no longer a test development vault, it is a production vault. So I'm going to rename this vault from test vault to prod, or just PROD _ vault. So before we do that, let's go ahead and make sure that there are no files checked out in the test vault. So we'll come to test vault. We'll log in real quick. There's no password, of course. And a quick way to do this is to just do a quick complete search and go to the checked in, checked out, display checked out files, run a quick search. It looks like I've got 2 files here that are currently checked out to admin, so I'm just going to go ahead and check those in real quick. Put a comment. And there we go. Now there's no more checked out files. Okay. Now, once you've done that, I'm going to go ahead and skip the backup process because that's kind of a different process entirely outside of the scope of this video. But make sure you do that and you follow that step. And I'll provide some notes at the bottom of the video with a full list of the preparations and checks you should do before you move forward. As well, with this vault, we're assuming that the customer is using a PDM professional vault or is using SQL standard. That's for 2 reasons. It's a little more straightforward renaming the tables with SQL standard than it is with SQL Express, unless they have Management Studio installed on that machine and they're able to write some scripts directly into that. But in this case, we're just going to cover how to do this for a SQL standard instance of SQL. So you'll want to go ahead and open up your SQL Management Studio, which I already have here, and I'm already logged in as SA. We're going to expand the databases node, and we're going to go find the particular vault in question here, and that is test vault. I'm going to expand test vault, and I'm going to go to my tables section, and I'm going to go down to the DBO projects, and I'm going to expand this as well into the triggers. You have this trigger here called on update project trigger. So what you're going to want to go ahead and do is go into that and disable that trigger. And it's going to give you a little note here, success. And you'll see the lightning bolt now has a little red downwards arrow pointing next to it. That just indicates that the disable worked successfully. So we're going to leave this here because we're going to have to come back to this later. Now, we're going to go back into the DBO projects section, into that table, and we're going to go right click, edit top 200 rows. Okay, and here we are in this table, and you can see you should have some different entries. And the first entry in this table should be your vault's name. We're going to go ahead and click into that cell in the table, in this case test vault, and I'm going to delete test and put in PROD. Now in order for this to take, I have to go out of that particular cell. So just a quick enter or a tab will do that just fine. Now that that's done, the name is updated there. I'm going to go ahead and close this table. I'm going to go back to my on update project trigger in my trigger section of the dbo.projects table and enable. And now it should show that same trigger pop-up we saw and a success, and now that red arrow should be gone. So you can close out of that table there and leave your Management Studio open. And you're going to want to go into a couple more tables. Let me just see if I can remember which ones they are, and they should be at the top here. Your first table you're going to want to modify is the dbo.archive servers table. So go ahead and click on that one and do an edit top 200 rows there as well. And in here you'll see your test vault name as well again. And we're going to do the same thing for vault name. We're just going to change this entry from test vault to our new name, which is prod vault. And same thing, and enter. Make sure that input goes into the table correctly. Now, once you've done that, you can close out of that table. You can go back to your tree and work your way down to the dbo.systeminfo table and do the same thing. Right click, edit top 200 rows. And a couple columns over, you should see the vault name column again, and there it is, test vault, and we're going to do the same thing, prod vault, and enter. Close out of that table. Now we need to do some changes into the Kinecio master DB tables as well, because there's information that's housed there that's important. So now, regardless of how many vaults, you can see here I have a lot of vaults on my system. Regardless of how many you have on your system, you will always have this Kinecio master DB, and you'll have one entry for this. So go ahead and go to that database and open on that table, or on that database rather, expand your tables. And then in the dbo.file vaults table, let's do an edit top 200 rows. And we're going to find the vault name. Now, don't get this confused with the database name. In this case, we're not changing the database name. Since the database name is kind of on the back end and it's not really outward facing on the Windows Explorer side of things, there's really no need to change the database name in this case. Of course, you can do that as well, but that's a little more involved, and there's be some other places that you'll need to update in SQL as well as the registry. But since we're just doing the vault name, I'm going to come to my test vault and do the same thing. I'm going to type in prod and a quick enter. puts that in for me. And once you've done that, you're done with the side of SQL. The SQL side of things has now been completed. I would just leave the Management Studio open in the background for now. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to actually update the archive server. Here, you're going to have to go to Windows and open up the Services application. And you're going to make sure you're logged as an admin so you can go in and make these kinds of changes. And we're going to go find, down in the S's, it's the SOLIDWORKS PDM Archive Server service. And it should be running. And in this case, we're going to stop it. So go ahead on that service, right click, stop. Service control should show up that it's stopping the service. It's now started. And now we're going to go ahead and go into the Registry Editor. Now, if you're not familiar with how to get to the Registry Editor, I can quickly show you how to do that. If you go Windows, REGEDIT, Reg Edit, and that's also admin level access, that'll open up your registry. So once you're in the Registry Editor, you're going to go browse into the H key local machine, which I'm already highlighted on here. We're going to go into the software node. We're going to go all the way down to the SOLIDWORKS. It's just regular SOLIDWORKS, not SOLIDWORKS Corporation in this case. Into Applications, PDM Works Enterprise, Archive Server, Vaults, and your vault name, Test Vault, should be right there. So once you're in this particular folder in the registry, you have some entries here that we need to modify. And actually, in this case, we're going to go one layer deeper. We'll come back and do these later. We're going to go to the actual archive table. And if you're unfamiliar with what the archive table is, this is where the actual files, your actual SOLIDWORKS and PDM data is stored at this particular location. Now, this is like the default location. Of course, you can modify this during your install, but here you can see in the path, your vault name is there. So my vault name, Test Vault, is there. So I need to go into each individual entry here, archive table 0 to archive table F, and I need to change that particular part of the path from test to prod. So I'm going to go ahead and do it, but I'll speed the video up so it goes a little more quickly. Okay, now that that's done, we'll just go real quick and double check and make sure that they all look right. So the path should be exactly the same all the way up to this last backslash after data. So prod vault, they all look good to me. And then the 0 through 9 and the A through F, that's all there. So that particular entry is done. So once you've done that, you can actually browse to the actual location of this full archive table, in which case I just happen to know where it is. It's C drive, program files, SOLIDWORKS, PDM, data, and there it is, my test vault. And there's those tables, right? Well, I have to actually change the name here as well in the File Explorer, since it's being referenced from the registry. So in this case, we'll come in and change that from test to prod. And it's going to say you'll need permission to do this. Continue. Might take a second. And you're going to get this error most likely. And that's good because you changed the name. Once it's changed, there it'll pop up. It's perfect right where it needs to be. And now we're going to go back to the registry and make sure that that path is indeed valid. it is. Now, the archive table has been updated, but we actually need to change the name of this folder here in the registry because it still thinks, as far as the registry is concerned, in this particular location, it's test vault. So we need to right click on that folder in the registry and go rename and change test to prod. Now be careful when you're doing things in the registry, because if you misspell something, add a space that's not supposed to be there, it might take you a little while to troubleshoot that and come and find it. So just be extra careful when making changes in the registry. Inside this setting here, one level above the archive table in this particular folder here, we need to make some changes as well to these keys. And the first one we want to change is DB name, right? The DB name is no longer test vault, it is now prod vault. That looks good. And then we're going to go into, stay in this particular folder here, the PDM Works Enterprise folder. And we're going to go into the archive server, computers, local, archives. Now this is a multi-line list of items where your vaults are spelled out kind of one line at a time. So you also need to modify the vault name here in this particular registry entry. So there's our test vault, and we're going to change it to prod vault. And that step's now done. So now that we've made all the changes in the registry that we need to make, we can go to our services and restart the archive server. Or in this case, just start it back up. Since it's set to automatic, it'll automatically start if you restart the machine or something. But in this case, since we manually stopped it, we have to manually restart it. And now we're also going to stop, or rather restart, the PDM database server. So come on this guy, restart. And you should be done with services. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize all these, and I'm going to come back to my administration tool, and here I see my test vault. If I do a quick refresh, it's now named prod vault. I can log into it. It's connecting fine.
Now I need to go back to my local file vault view in File Explorer and delete the test vault view. Now it's important to make sure you select the option to delete all cached files here, and you'll also want to do this on any client machine after you've renamed your vault. So to go ahead and take care of this step real quick, and then we'll move on to the next step. So now I no longer have that test vault. I'm going to come back to my admin tool and create a new local view. Tell it to go on the C drive. Everyone should be familiar with how to create a local view. It's going to ask me to log in. And voila, there it is in all its glory. Prod vault. And we can see it here in our C directory. Prod vault is there, test vault is not. And that is how you rename a PDM vault without having to do any data migration. So I hope you enjoyed this video. You should probably do a reboot
after this is all said and done, and it would also probably be a good idea to go into the HKey current user settings. And this is actually one step you need to do. I forgot to add this step back in. Go back into your registry and into the HKey current user software, down into SOLIDWORKS, Applications, PDMWorks Enterprise. And in the Kinesio admin, you have a Kinesio admin section here, and you should go ahead and delete this registry key. Now, why is that? It just needs to be recached and reconfigured with the new settings. And the only way to do that in the HKey current user directory is to just delete it, and then when you reopen the administration tool and log into PDM, it will create a new Kinesio admin folder in that particular place. And you could do that before or after recreating the file vault view, doesn't really matter. But in this case, we can see my prod vault is there. I can go in and look at my workflow. I can go in and access the vault. I can check out a file. So let's look for a file, maybe just a part file. Doesn't look like I have any part files, at least not there. So maybe we'll do an ECO. I have an XML file here. I'm going to go ahead and check it out. And I'm going to check it right back in just to make sure everything's working. And it's working just fine. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for your time. As always, like us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube page, and come back for more helpful PDM tips in the future. Thanks a lot.